Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're going to be going live with another Facebook Live in about a minute. We're going to be talking about workplace politics, which I know doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but trust me, you're going to want to hear this. So we'll give it just a minute for folks to join, and then we'll get started. We go. Make sure I have everything set up for our broadcast here. As I say, we'll give it about 30 seconds and then we'll get started. So for those of you who've joined us, thank you so much. And we will begin very, very shortly. Greetings from Las Vegas, by the way, where the weather is absolutely perfect and I have no complaints, which is a rare and beautiful thing. All right, so let's get started. Make the best use of everybody's time. Hi, everybody. I'm Wayne Trammell from the Remote Leadership Institute, and I want to talk to you today for a couple of minutes about a topic that nobody wants to talk about. How's that for brilliant marketing, right? But I want to talk to you about politics, especially the dreaded workplace politics, office politics that people are constantly complaining about. See, when people work from home or really anywhere other than the office, one of the things we hear is, oh, thank goodness I'm away from all of the politics. And I know that that sounds awfully tempting. There's no gossip, there's no idle chatter, no trying to soothe someone's ego. You can just concentrate on your work. But I want to make it clear that we ignore the politics of the workplace at our own peril. And so I want to dig down into that a little bit. It starts with a misunderstanding of what politics is. You know, what comes to mind when we hear it is all the negative stuff. Gossip, turf defending, it's like Game of Thrones, right? Or I guess Game of Cubicles. It's the equally vicious, just lower stakes. But politics at its root simply means the way people in an organization or a community act to get things done. And if you don't understand how people are working together and why they do the things they do, it's really hard to get anything accomplished. At first, it seems very restful to be away from all the hallway conversations and the gossip. But after a while, you begin to notice some things that aren't so positive. You're getting left out of the decision-making process. When the organization makes choices, they often seem to come out of nowhere. You never saw them coming. Or maybe there's a new positioning opening up, and you can't even be bothered applying for it because, you know, those jobs go to the suck-ups in home office, and why should I bother? Your team may start to ask questions about the organization and who does what and why things are happening. And as the leader, you find yourself unable to answer them. Now, we're not saying that you need to become some kind of Machiavelli. We're really not. You don't want to be known as a weasel, frankly. But you can understand the politics without playing politics. And I would submit that if you're a leader, you've engaged in some sort of politics, literally without thinking about it. How did you get promoted into your position? You knew the people in your organization, they knew you, you know who could help, who to avoid, who's a bit hard to work with, and you've adjusted accordingly over the years. And when you work in a workplace, in an office situation, you kind of learn those things kind of by osmosis. You know, and those people in return saw the quality of your work and you contributed to discussions, and maybe people got to know you in meetings and drew conclusions about your motivation and your competence and whether you're an organizational fit, whatever the heck that means. You just didn't think about it because it's all happening in real time and often in such small microdoses that it never occurred to you what was going on. but you were visible to the organization and vice versa. When you work remotely, you don't have visibility to some of those factors. And they're the things that drive decisions and help get things done. Do you know who to go to if you need a quick decision on something? Does the VP of sales in your organization control more of the budget and the project approval than maybe the organization chart suggests that she should? And how do you know these things? And you need to be involved, and it's hard to remain visible. You're literally out of sight and out of mind. Very often, people ignoring you or not thinking about your team or not seeking your input isn't something malicious. It's just if you're not on their radar screen, they're not going to ask. Now, if you aren't intentionally bringing yourself to people's attention or asking questions on behalf of your team that can impact the work or understanding the decision-making dynamics in your company, it's likely you're going to find yourself on the outside. And from there, it's frankly just a small step to throwing your hands up and disengaging. The same thing, by the way, is happening to all of your team members. Are you aware what they are thinking about the organization? Are people on your team being excluded from decisions? Are there cliques forming between the people in the office and the remote workers, or maybe those who've been there a long time and the new hires? You need to at least be aware of what's going on around you. Is there gossip? Well, it's easy to close your eyes or ears, I guess, and or tell people to ignore it, and you don't want to spread it or partake, but you sure better find out what's being said and what the real story is so that you can prepare to address it before it corrodes the rest on your team. So here's something that I'm going to challenge you with, and this is actually something that in the Long Distance Leader book, we actually got a fair number of comments on because most of us never stop to think and do this. I want you to draw an org chart from memory. Who's in charge of your company? Who does what with which and to whom? Lay it out. And then I want you to look at it and I want you to ask yourself, who on that chart do you have existing positive relationships with? Who, do you have knowledge of what's going on in that part of the company? And where are the gaps in your knowledge? That's the first thing. Then I want you to do a kind of part two. I want you to compare the official reporting lines with how things actually get done. Right? I know that so-and-so is the VP in charge of whatever it is, but if you need to get stuff done, do you have the ability to go to them directly? Do they maybe have somebody who influences them that you can use as an ally? Who controls the funding for your team? And you want to be able to look at that and say, where do I have strong relationships and where maybe do I need to build some bridges? You can take simple steps like introducing yourself by email to people, offering assistance, volunteering for cross-functional teams and projects. Even if you're not in the office, you can actively participate in meetings where otherwise people might not be thinking about you. And it's not that you're a weasel and it's not that you're backstabbing or doing anything those. But if you don't understand how people work together in your company, it can erode trust very quickly. If you don't know why certain decisions are made, or you feel like so-and-so's getting preferential treatment, or those of you who work remotely are being passed over regularly for things, it just doesn't have to be that way. And a lot of this comes down to trust. Trust requires evidence to sustain itself over time. And locking yourself away and basically saying, la, 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 I'm not listening to you, is not helping. These things are important. And so I'm going to urge you to pay attention, do that org chart exercise. You might be surprised by what you learn. But while we're on the subject of trust, you can learn more about building trust on a remote team. We're having a webinar September 19th, surprisingly called Building Trust on a Remote Team. I've put the link in the comments, and so I look forward to you. Join us. Bring your questions, come prepared to interact, and learn the best practices of creating trusting, honest, and transparent remote teams. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I've enjoyed telling you about this, getting a little of this off my chest, and I hope to see you September 19th for our webinar. So thank you so much.